Before we begin, I just want to thank both Karen Wills, Executive Director of MUUSJA, and Nico VanOstrand, the Racial Justice Coordinator or Director for MUUSJA.
Director, yep.
Director, thank you. And I had the privilege of working with Nico at White Bear a few years back now, and so grateful for your leadership, and thank you for joining us tonight. Nico mentioned that they are in have storms up there in those parts that we don't have down here. So if Nico disappears, or maybe Karen too, because of power outages, we'll carry on the best we can. So thank you all for being here. So just take a breath, a moment of gratitude for the day, and gratitude for the community and the chance to be together. Gratitude for the time to be in a community of shared values and hopes, knowing the work is not easy, but it is best when we do it together and figure it out as we go. So I'll light our chalice here. And here are words that I shared at the MUUSJA Summit as well from UU Minister and Professor Rosemary Bray McNatt. By no means are we, Unitarian Universalists, perfect. We often fail as much as we succeed. Yet even when we have broken our vows 1,000 times, we return to this essential work of justice and liberation for all. We do the work best when we remember that what church is and what it is not. Church is not a place to hide. It is not the place to get away from the world. It is not a place where we get to pretend that the lives we live and our particular situations are not terribly complex, often confusing, sometimes distressing. Church is the place where we gather with one another, face the world head on, attempt to see it clearly, and gather strength to face what we see with courage, and yes, with joy. So with courage and joy, we go. So I'm going to turn it over to Karen and Nico to guide us through our forum tonight. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. I'll just maybe introduce myself and then turn it over to Karen. I know she has a video to start us off with. So like Luke said, I'm Nico VanOstrand. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm MUUSJA's Racial Justice Director, and I'm also a religious educator for White Bear Unitarian Universalists in Mahtomedi, and virtually for Birmingham Unitarian in Michigan. So kind of got a lot of UU circles going on. I'm glad to be here with you all tonight.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. It's wonderful to be back. We spoke together earlier this year about the UU the Vote effort, some of us that MUUSJA was involved with, and we'll circle back to that. And of course, I want to acknowledge Gail Bishop, who is the heart and soul of MUUSJA's board of directors, and Reverend Luke, thank you for also having served on the MUUSJA board. So we have close connections with Rochester, and lots of friends, newer and older friends. So my name is Karen Wills. I am currently serving as the executive director for MUUSJA, and would like to just share a little bit about what we have been doing this last year and what we're thinking of for the future. I use she, her pronouns, by the way, and I'm a member of, for the last 20-some years, of First Universalist Church in Minneapolis, more recently also of the Minnesota Valley UU Church in Bloomington. And I was a member when I lived in Rochester of the UU Church in Rochester back, right around 2000 or so, that, for a few years there. So I am going to try to pull up a video that we put together as just a 4 or 5 minute introduction to MUUSJA for the annual meeting. So a few of you may have seen this before, but I think most have not. So bear with my limited tech skills, and we hope that we can show this despite the storm.
Welcome to MUUSJA's 2020 annual meeting. From our board, our staff, 31 congregations, 64 partners, our UUSC and UUFP generous donors, and 480 plus volunteers. We welcome you and thank you. This is how we used to worship. We would gather and rally and march for the climate and for youth voices, intergenerational pride all over the state. We ordained, discerned, discussed, served, celebrated. We gathered and appreciated and advocated. Last year, MUUSJA celebrated with cake. We had conversations and awards and music and dancing and swag. And we were ahead of our time. We began the year with our racial justice focus and gathered to create climate justice, and then COVID hit. We continued to serve northern Minnesota, gathering with indigenous peoples for climate justice. We were told to stay home if we had that privilege. And we had to cancel the Islamophobia conference, the women's retreat, and our Minnetonka INITC Protecting the Sacred. But we pivoted and went to St. Cloud and car rallied for justice for the workers there. When George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis, we mourned and marched and committed to fight for justice. We began to UU the vote, and we mobilized for the census. With the League of Women Voters, we distributed lawn signs, we mobilized children and families. Voter registration at United Theological Seminary. We posted voter information and answered innumerable emails. We sent out 39,000 postcards and letters to voters across the country and worked here in Minnesota on phone banking, text banking, social media campaigns, and with Love, Vote, Rise, postering in small markets and bat signaling across our region, northern Minnesota. We worked with the UUA, and we're still fighting for Georgia. In 2021, we will move forward, continuing the work for justice and for love, against Islamophobia, against racism, protecting children at the border and people with vulnerabilities across the state. We will fight for the planet and the human rights impacted, and for death with dignity. MUUSJA's about justice and joy. Madeleine L'Engle says that joy in existence without which the world would fall apart. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting this work. Thank you for being MUUSJA.
Thanks so much, Luke. I think a picture really is worth 1,000 words, so appreciate your patience with getting that loaded up. we had a bit of a power failure this afternoon, so it was not preloaded, as you could probably tell. So MUUSJA is doing a lot of work, as you can see, beyond UU the Vote. We sent another 14,000 postcards into Georgia, and about 5,000 of those were distributed to all of you by Ann Black-Sinnock down in Rochester, who's our MUUSJA liaison. So we're really grateful for that. And since then, as Nico will tell you more about, we've been moving into doing a lot of work the first quarter of this year, particularly with the racial justice convening and in relation to Line 3. Some of you have been at the forums that we've held together with the folks from Honor the Earth and Ginu Collective, Gitche Gumi Scouts, and other Indigenous leaders in northern Minnesota resisting Line 3. In that regard, I just wanted to mention that we will be sending out another note tonight yet about a special major gathering tomorrow, which is happening in St. Paul. We're hoping for 1,000 people, or at least 500, to be standing in St. Paul, showing up as they're able, and calling upon President Biden to block the construction of Line 3. We have a narrow window right now before they start drilling under the river after the thaws. So this is a time when there's an enormous push around that work, which is right at the intersection of honoring the treaties and the lives and lands of Native peoples, honoring the water and the earth to whom they belong, and resisting the kind of extractive capitalism and depredations that have been a part of white supremacy culture since before there was a constitution and since before there were treaties. So we will be there tomorrow doing that work, and if you can't be there, I know it's quite a drive from Rochester, please do take a look at the flyer that we will send out, hoping that everyone in the world is just asking President Biden to please put a stop to the pipelines. So Nico, I'm going to hand it over to you if you're ready to be able to tell some more about the work that you've been so central to. We're so grateful to have you do.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. I'm glad to be here. Reverend Luke shared earlier that it's thunderstorming pretty hard up here. I'm right outside of St. Paul. And so the windows are rattling and there's a lot going on. So hopefully my internet and power holds out for us tonight. So I shared earlier, I'm the racial justice director for MUUSJA. I was brought on last fall, and specifically to organize what eventually became the racial justice convening, which was held in February. And I see a couple familiar faces from that event as well here today. Racial justice organizing is kind of my jam. It's my educational background. It's what I do in my spare time with the Filipinx community in the Twin Cities. And it's super essential to my work as a religious educator. So this convening and this work with MUUSJA was like all the stars and all the things that I'm passionate about kind of aligning and coming together, which is really cool. So for those of you this is kind of new to, the racial justice convening was 5 sessions over 2 weeks, where basically I gave a little like 15-minute mini lecture about social justice theory and then talked people's ears off about being vulnerable and open and reflective. And then for an hour, everyone was in breakout rooms with UUs from across Minnesota and the Dakotas to reflect on 2 conversation starters. And so the idea behind this was really that reflection is necessary, right? If I ever get to a place where I think I am done reflecting, that is a sign that I need to stop and drop everything and reflect some more. So most of the time, attendance was 100% white. We never had enough BIPOC participants to have a viable BIPOC only breakout room, which is something that we predicted would happen. So another goal of this convening was to give white UUs an opportunity to sort of work through some stuff in these small circles together, held very, very beautifully. And that was really in preparation or parallel to the more hands-on work out in the community, and particularly with BIPOC organizations and members who didn't really need to be witness to that messy and important process. And then also huge credit to the volunteer planning team that met with me and with Karen every week and helped sort of untangle and add to my imaginings. This was always a collaborative effort between the planning team and the facilitators, and then the worship leaders and tech support, and also the participants. And so I hoped the end result, result of this convening would be a continued collaboration and partnership on racial justice work across congregations. So this was an opportunity to meet and bond with UUs around racial justice. And along the way, at every single session, we encourage people to stay connected outside of and beyond that convening, because that's where the magic really happens. So getting people in the room and convincing them this is worthwhile is one thing, but it's on the participants to then form partnerships and call each other up and say, hey, my congregation's doing this really cool thing. Does your congregation want to partner with us on it? Or, hey, we met at the racial justice convening. You want to go to the Stop Line 3 event on Thursday with me? Things like that. We know that racial justice is never going to happen if we just work on it individually. And any of you who've done some sort of community organizing know the importance of connections and coalitions, collaborations, things like that. So that's what I hoped would happen in a really, really organic way with the racial justice convening last month. Now, the parallel efforts alongside that, organic happening are what we're calling convening circles. So we're launching these next week at an event I'll share a little bit more about later. But these are more intentionally guided to basically encourage those same types of cross-congregational partnerships with MUUSJA staff there as resources. So these convening circles are kind of like coalition meetings. You pick your cause, you go to that meeting, and in attendance will be other UUs from Minnesota and the Dakotas who also care about that cause. So these circles are a little more of a mix of reflecting and also planning and brainstorming, problem solving if there's something specific going on, and generally supporting each other. And so MUUSJA staff will facilitate and sort of offer our skills and knowledge that we can offer. But our role is mainly as a guide who can sort of hold the intention of that space, connect people and resources, stuff like that, drive the momentum forward as needed, sort of as like capacity or movement builders. But the knowledge and what needs to happen in that space comes from whoever is attending. And this is all based on UU the Vote's work last year, so you might be familiar with this format already. We're just expanding it out to other causes now. So more specifically, I'm facilitating the Immigrant Rights Circle and then the BIPOC Only Circle, which, being a person of color is not a cause. So that has a lot more flexibility of what that can be. And then Karen is going to facilitate an Elder Justice Circle. Allison, who you may know from UU the Vote, is going to continue those circles with more of like defensive democracy type of thing. She's also going to take on the Racial Justice Circle, which I'll sort of support behind the scenes. And then Katie, the other person on MUUSJA staff, is super active with Stop Line 3 efforts. But whenever it makes sense for her to do so, she's going to start some environmental justice circles. And of course, there are so many other causes that fall under the umbrella of social justice and MUUSJA. But this is what we're starting with, and we'll grow from there. And there's there's interconnections between all of these causes, and the other causes that aren't named are connected to these circles. So roughly, our sort of rough draft of the flow of each convening circle is like a time to check in around a reflection question, space to share about upcoming events that either you want to invite participants to come to or ask them to help plan, and then a solid chunk of time to address whatever needed for that space. So this could be time to plan a project together, or again, problem solve something, or if there's a big event going on, to sort of process that and organize a little bit about that big current event, whatever it may be. And all of this with a Unitarian Universalist lens. So as you can imagine, this means everyone who attends these circles is a Unitarian Universalist who is either involved with or committed to becoming involved with the cause. So that could be, popping in because maybe I'm involved with community efforts, but not with Unitarian Universalist efforts. Or maybe I am on my, corresponding committee at my congregation, so I'm sort of the liaison who's going to go there. Or maybe I come from a really small fellowship and we don't have a committee. So these convening circles can be sort of a surrogate committee to help share resources and people power. And that's really an overview. These are just starting out. So again, we have a very clear idea of the intention of these spaces, but where they go from here is open and really exciting. They'll become exactly what they need to be. So I do want to invite everyone to a convening circle launch party at 6:30 on Tuesday, March 16th. That's just under a week from today. So that you can come and you can meet all of us from MUUSJA if you don't know us already, and ask your questions and get excited for these circles. And I hope you'll be able to come to that, but whether or not you attend, I'm going to put a link in the chat, and this is for a survey that you can express interest in these convening circles. So that's how we'll figure out when to meet and if we have enough interested people to run a circle, things like that. So that's in the chat right now, and I'll put that in at the end again, just in case it gets lost in there somewhere. And then I also want to come back to something I think Karen mentioned earlier, and that's that MUUSJA's #1 goal right now is to connect UUs across congregations through social justice work. And so, this is the model that community organizers work or use. It's tried and true, and it's beneficial. We know it's beneficial to have a group of people that we can lean on for support and inspiration. And also, this is an idea that UUs have struggled with. It's one of those sneaky things, right? We know that individualism is a problematic symptom of white supremacy culture. We know that. And still, it sneaks in these really, really sneaky ways into our organizing work. And so as an effort to combat that, we're offering these convening circles so that people can connect. They can have this way of connecting with each other and pushing back a little bit on that individualism and things like that sneak in. I also want to mention that, sometimes even our UU commitment to social justice feels really urgent. And those causes I listed before, they are awesome and worthwhile, and it can be really hard to pick just one. And so, I might feel like I have to do all the things all the time. And my encouragement is to understand our role in the context of other UUs. And again, hoping that these convening circles will be a big part of that. So I shared earlier that I'm heading up 2 of the convening circles. And while I care about the other 4 causes as well, I know that Karen and Allison and Katie have my back. I know that they've got those causes handled because I trust them and I understand my work in the context of theirs. So I hope that, the pressure to go to all of them and do all of those things can be alleviated a little bit. Pick one to go to, and also connect with everyone else, in your congregation who are going to the other circles and partner together with that work, right? And I just think this is so exciting. I love that I don't have to save the world on my own. I really love having people I can count on and share space with. And I love being inspired by other people's work and figuring out how we can collaborate on something together. That's been one of the best part of organizing for me. And then another Another piece of that sort of subtext through all of this is that social justice is a piece of who we are. It's part of what we're called to as Unitarian Universalists. It's a lifestyle. There is no clear endpoint, and unfortunately, sometimes there aren't even wins and losses, and it never ends. And so the only way that that can possibly be sustainable is if striving for social justice is understood as a lifelong practice, and also one that we do together. So this is not, sign up for X amount of time or for whatever goal and certain outcomes. That might be part of it, but that's not all of it. This is really like switch up your life, whatever that looks like for you, and work for social justice. And do it as part of this beautiful circle of Unitarian Universalists in Minnesota, in the Dakotas, and around the world, truly. But UUs who are doing the same kinds of work as you are, and are ready to be witness to and part of that with you. So if you can't tell, I just think it's really exciting. I love this work, and I love the idea of being able to do it together. And I, really quick, because I'm a religious educator, and I made some graphics because that's, of course, what I do. So I do want to share those really quick. I'll put a link to them in the chat. This is, again, you can take a look at it via the link, or otherwise I will share my screen. And these are resources for you to print, use whatever you need to do, as long as you're not, cropping and altering them. But here they are. So there's 3 different graphics, and they all have kind of the same information. I have a checklist for, linear thinkers. You got to be learning and growing, reading things, learning things. You have to be connecting with other people, offering what you can of yourself, doing things, which can mean so many different things, reflecting on how that felt in your heart and how it changed you, and then repeat, right? Around and around again. Again, the same sort of information. This is my favorite one. We have the little person, we have the head work, which again is the reading and thinking, the heart work, reflecting, how do you feel about it? And the hand work, which is, doing things. And then finally, I have our racial justice roadmap, which is a circle, not because we're, going around in circles and spinning our wheels, but because we need to visit these places a lot. We need to visit them over and over again. So if you find these helpful and useful, they're yours to utilize, however. But I did want to at least show those to you all. And I also share those to emphasize again that, you find your cause, find your cause, and also your preferred way of doing it, right? So I know that I'm a heart kind of person. I like thinking about how I feel about things and where my values are. That's the most easily accessible to me. And I also really love analyzing things and reading things. So when it's time for me to, do things, that hand piece of it, I end up, organizing a reflection-based racial justice convening, for example. So figuring out those ways that make sense for me to get involved here. And then I also know, because I'm close friends with them, that there are other people in my circles who are doing, mutual aid and city cleanup and neighborhood safety patrols and other things. I don't have to do it alone, or do all the things all the time. And I know that because I've done the long and complicated process of connecting with people who are right there with me in their own way. So again, that's where these convening circles come in. I know that for me, I have circles of support, but none of those people are Unitarian Universalist. And since my faith is so important to my organizing work and my philosophies, I need a group of people who can talk about Unitarian Universalism and why the principles require us to care about environmental justice or elder justice, things like that. And that's what these circles offer. So I've talked a lot, and I hope you're excited about this. And I think I'm going to turn it back to Karen. She has another video, I think, to show us, or some wrap up to do. But after that, I'd really love to hear from you all about, how do you see your work, your Unitarian Universalist social justice work, fit into this kind of convening circles that I've just described. So I'd love for you to start thinking about that and share back to us a little bit after Karen.
Thanks. And I think we will not struggle with videos. The other video that we have is dispensable, but there are two quick things that I want to mention that come from that. One is thinking about these sort of the ways in which the networking that we can do through MUUSJA across congregations and with our congregations in relation to many different community organizations around Minnesota, North and South Dakota, which we've adopted now as well. How does that all fit together in a way that creates a kind of joyful synergy without burning us out? You know, where is it that MUUSJA comes in without simply becoming, oh my God, one more Zoom meeting, you know, kind of thing. Obviously, y'all can tolerate that because you're here tonight for this, but we want to sort of think about going forward. How does it all fit? And what we're seeing is that the work that we do in MUUSJA is not in any way a substitute for the congregational social justice work that happens in the efforts that I know from your participation in the annual meeting that you already have put in with adult education, with the work that you've done with equal access, with the work that has been going on with the Rochester Diversity Council and such. So that moves forward in a hyper-local context within the congregation, you know, either on Zoom or hopefully soon in person, right? The link across the state then becomes an opportunity that we are thinking of, you know, that could happen as much or as little as people want it to. You know, we're down for meeting once a week or once a month, but we're also down for meeting, you know, kind of once a quarter or even biannually, depending upon kind of what's going on and what it is that our congregations need. We have 30 congregations across Minnesota and the Dakotas, and some of them are tiny and some are enormous, and some have very active groups that are working on particular issues that are going to want to connect, and some are not, and that's all okay. Finally, we also ourselves, as a state action network, are part of a bigger network nationally. So, right, I was in a meeting just yesterday with the inimitable Minnesota's own Nicole Presley, who is our amazing leader around organizing nationwide, and Ashley Horan, my predecessor, who now is the organizing strategy director for all of the country. And so we are working really closely with the network of state action networks, with the UUA organizing leadership, democracy defenders, and the Ministry for Earth around some climate justice work. And, you know, that might be a meeting that one or two of us would be at, you know, once every couple of months, sharing then at the state level and coming from the state level convenings and sharing at the local level. So we really, those networks kind of extend in some very big ways, as well as coming back to what we can do right here. They expand our impact, they expand our knowledge and information and resources, they expand our power to do things with UUs around the world, as well as community organizations right here in Minnesota, and organizations like Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light, Isaiah, the NAACP, Minnesota Voices, all of the groups that we had teamed with around the work that we've done so far. So just coming back to that theme that Nico emphasized, that we do not have to do it alone. We do not have to suffer and slog through the process of struggling with injustice. It is work that we do for our lives and with joy and in community. And that's how it doesn't burn us out. All right. We want to leave at least a little time for some questions and just kind of open it up.
Yeah, if there are any folks who have questions they want to share here, or type in the chat. And often I told Karen and Nico that we go till 7:15-ish, which is something that has continued as our practice since we were in person. The forum does not have a definitive end time always, but we can go a couple minutes over even though we're at 7:15. If there are questions that folks wanted to share or responses to the questions Nico posted in the chat there as well. And Nico offered the opportunity to do by email as well with MUUSJA as well. So if you wanted to send those to Karen or Nico. Any comments, thoughts, reflections? What I will say just in response, and give folks just a chance to think for another second here if there are other thoughts, just gratitude for naming two things. One, the continuous circle, the roadmap that's just round and round, but not spinning our wheels. That sense that this is lifelong work. We enter all at different places at different times in ways that we can as we have time and ability, and there's always more to learn and more to grow. As well as that with the importance of community and celebration and joy, that justice work need not and should not be, if it's going to be sustainable, a dirge or something that's really depleting and distressing all the time, but that joint work can bring celebration and joy and a sense of community support as well, and how important our faith institutions are in that work. That's what we do at our best on Sunday mornings, is tell the truth, uplift people's spirits so they know how to move forward, or at least where to go when they're wondering how to move forward, with others asking the same questions.
Luke, I'd like to make a comment.
Please do, George.
I've been sitting here and frankly enjoying what I've learned about. I know many of the folks that are in this Zoom meeting, and I know that a lot of you have done a lot of work. And I view this as a service station, very frankly, for renewed energy and so forth. I've kind of been involved. Well, I've been actually involved for about 78 years, but more recently in the last 25 years, trying to help with sharing information about things. And this is wonderful. And I see my good friends around. That makes me feel good. Makes me think that, and the church. And I just appreciate knowing more about MUUSJA and the connections and so forth. So I just want you to know that very appreciative. However, I don't want to sign up for doing a whole bunch of things, but but I can be a resource in some instances. And I'm very excited to be here.
I think I'd like to emphasize that one of the things that Karen and Nico have highlighted was the connections that you can make with other congregants from other churches around the state. After the Racial Justice Summit, made some great friends with folks in Duluth, some additional new faces from St. Cloud. And that's really encouraging because they're excited to collaborate with us. And so it opens the door to incredible possibilities so that we're not just doing the work with our own community and feeling burned out even amongst ourselves for sometimes the work we can do, but when we can partner with others from other congregations, it just strengthens everything.
I can comment quickly. I apologize. I thought we were scheduled till 7:30, so I won't take too long. But I do want to say hello to Paula Horner, who's my former coworker from when I was at Mayo for a few years, many years ago. And I know that Paula and some others of you have actually been working with Equal Access, looking at making our congregations kind of more accessible, more welcoming. And I currently with another organization, well, one of the committees that I serve on in my volunteer time is the DFL Disability Caucus. So I work with statewide with my personal political party to try to make that more accessible and aware of people with disabilities. This is an area of justice that MUUSJA has not kind of been on the docket for MUUSJA, but because it happens to be of great personal interest to me for a variety of reasons, I am very interested in moving forward and having MUUSJA do some work on elder justice and disability rights, disability justice issues. They're so intersectional with everything else we do. And so Paula, I gotta give you a call.
You're welcome to do that, Karen. And Gail is a big piece of that as well. And Shelley Rowe, who is a member of our congregation, is now the coordinator for AIM. So I was making some notes thinking Shelley needs to talk to Karen. so I'd be happy.
Now that we're all, now that we're all on Zoom, the one bright light with this whole COVID thing, as much horror as it's brought, it's enough of us are on Zoom now, with or without wonderful tech skills, that it makes it so much more possible to communicate and collaborate, across geography. And I really appreciate that. And I think that's one of the things that we want to try to move forward with, something that I'm planning specifically to work on over this coming summer. And then sort of thinking about, how MUUSJA's platform can serve as a connector, a network, and a resource for other congregations that want to do some of that, some work in that area as well. So
it's nice to know what you're doing in your retirement, Karen.
Retirement? Is that a thing? Yeah, make good trouble, yeah.
Are there any other final reflections or questions from folks that they wanted to share? Well, with that, I'll remind you to continue to offer those reflections through me, and I can send them along to Karen and Nico as well, or through MUUSJA website. You can find their contact information as well. But to express my gratitude to both of you, Nico and Karen, not only for joining us tonight, but for the work that you do to connect UUs across Minnesota and far beyond that into this work in a time when we are reminded how desperately we need connection and we need one another in these distant times. Grateful to gather like this. Very much wish that we could, have had dinner and then the forum in the hearth room and make you drive all the way down here. But so glad that we can join this way. So take good care, everybody. Thanks for joining tonight. Keep in the work and keep going round and round. Thank you for being together tonight, and thanks for coming, Karen and Nico.